Good morning. We'll give a little bit of time just for everybody to join, and then we'll get started.
We're using the room.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We're going to go through the registration forms kind of selectively, not going through each question just because some of them are the same that have been there for the last 5 years. So we're going to go over some of the new ones. Lance is with me. He's going to go over some of them as well. We'll pause for questions at kind of each section. You can also put questions in the chat. If you don't have audio, we'll be checking that as well. We are recording this. It's going to be on our YouTube page. So if you miss anything, that'll be there for you to go back to look at. And if you miss something or you have questions afterwards, you can always email me and we can do what we need to do to get you the answers for your questions. The first thing we're going to go over, hopefully everybody can see my screen. This is under the first page. You can't see it because it's made big, but this is under introduction. This is all similar, same as last year. The new information starts here where it's talking about the wireless routing sheets. There should be somebody within your PSAP that is getting these. It should be an email from Comtech, Verizon, Intrado, or T-Mobile. These are something, if the tower had some kind of maintenance or a storm knocked the tower a different way, they're going to email you, let you know, hey, you need to check this sector. Comes in a really big spreadsheet, and it'll give you all the information you need, a link to check that tower sector in your call boundary. So this is what we're asking for this. If you have questions on this, you can always give me a call or shoot me an email, but this is about the wireless routing sheets. Do you have anything you want to add? This is also new. We have asked about the MSAG previously, about who handles your MSAG, whether that's one person or an agency, but we're asking when the last time that MSAG was updated and who was that person that updated it. So there's two questions within the registration forms about the MSAG. There's this one that's asking specifically when the last time the MSAG was updated and who updated that. And the second question on the MSAG is asking who is in charge of the MSAG. So they're two different questions, even though they may seem similar. Hang on 1 second. I think I have to make this smaller. There we go.
Any questions on the first section?
So if the MSAG is handled by, let's say, INCOG, and we don't know what the date is that they updated it, what do we put there?
I would get hold of Barbara and find out what the date was and put the date in that Barbara provides. She probably updates it almost every day, I would guess. So it should be a pretty easy thing for her to be able to get.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? I think everything here is pretty much the same. We did remove the financial contact. I know that, probably isn't a big deal to everyone, but just in case you're like, hey, I think there's something might have been missing, that's what it is. The financial contact was removed from the forms. Okay. I missed one.
Yep. Go to technical, yep, technology contact information. All right.
Okay, so the technology contact, there is two new parts of this. Well, actually, four. We're asking who the local person is. We know that sometimes there's a broader range like Sadley's or an agency that comes in that you call when there's something going on. But we're looking for a local person. If something went wrong with a computer and needed an update or something was down, who we're going to call locally. You're going to call someone from the city or the county, or do you call Jim that comes over and he works his magic and fixes it? How does that transpire?
So let me add a little bit to that. So if we look at the first question there, for issues related to local hardware, does a city or county IT respond for repairs? The next one is who's the person? So what is the name of the person, group, office, agency, company that provides technical network software support? So this could be, an individual company. It could be, the county IT person, something like that. Well, right below that, where her cursor is now, who do you contact when something technology network related is not functioning? Could be the same person, could be somebody different. Now, why are we asking all these questions?
Yeah.
The main reason why we're asking these questions is that, as we continue to move forward with next generation 911, there's going to be a lot more involvement, and we want to make sure our list and our contact people remain as current as possible. Because there's going to be training. We're going to do cyber training. We're planning on that in the coming months, and putting that information out. Now, our intention is not to bypass the local 911 coordinator or supervisor, or whoever their primary contact is. The intention is to make sure that they're getting the information related back to this training and things like that we're putting out, much like we see in the GIS world. So.
Ken, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I do. So is this for 911 contact or is it for other IT related issues like CAD or, because those are two separate worlds.
Correct, yeah. And that's a good question. I would say that this would be your local internal IT for your, any equipment that may be attached to 911 or the 911. I mean, we don't ask specifically, because obviously, you guys right now would contact AT&T if it was a 911 specific outage, I'm assuming. But, what about the other technology there? So I would say
It depends, because technically there's three, right? So that's why I'm asking, because if anything goes wrong, the keyboard doesn't even work with 911, somebody else handles that. If it's a CAD or network problem, or if I can't answer the telephone, those are two different groups.
I would say this is your local IT contact,
Okay,
if that makes sense, yeah.
but they won't have anything to do if a telephone doesn't work.
So I think it's
That's
your
what
local
I'm
IT
saying.
contact. Yeah, I think it's your local
Okay.
IT contact, because hopefully they know who to contact if your telephone doesn't work. If there's
They do not. They're not allowed to talk. That's right. So it's on the 911 coordinator. So maybe I just list myself.
Yeah,
That's why I'm curious.
that's probably be the right person.
Okay.
If you're the one that manages the technology there, then, and that's what it sounds like to me, then it would be you.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, next one is, what software do PSAP use? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Is right here. Next one is, what software does the PSAP use to update and maintain the local addressing GIS information to ensure the NG911 addressing and GIS standard is met? This is a new question.
Yeah, so this is basically, are you using Esri? Are you using a independent company's tool? There's several companies out there that have they've built their own internal tools to maintain NG911 GIS data. So, what software are you using to maintain that background or the back end information for NG911? And then the second question to this is below that, which is who provides mapping data for 911 equipment in the PSAP? So what mapping company do you have in dispatch? So is it Geocom? Is it Rapid Deploy? Is it Rapid SOS, the paid version? What company are you actually using within the PSAP?
Does anybody have any questions about those?
So on the first question I'm supposed to again ask Barbara what they're using.
Correct. Because I don't think you do any local GIS work at the local level and then upload that to INCOG. Is that correct?
No, INCOG does all of Owaso's mapping.
Okay, but I believe there's some other areas within INCOG that they do their own local work and then they upload it to INCOG, and then INCOG adds that to a master mapping program, I believe.
Correct.
City of Tulsa. So yeah, within the INCOG region, much like the ACOG region, there'll be two different approaches to that.
Is there opportunity to list more than one mapping vendor since
You
those
can.
are very, okay.
Yeah, it's an open format there, so you can add commas and add additional ones if you need to.
Ken and Brooke, I have all the answers from Barbara if you want me to forward that to you.
Oh, sweet. Look at that.
Thanks, Tiara.
Thanks, TR.
Okay.
All right. Any other
Equipment.
questions on the contact information or tab?
Would you have it for ACOG?
I only have it for Enric.
ACOG will be giving a certain block of their information. They do this every year for us, so they'll give some information and the PSAP provides some information. I haven't got that from ACOG yet, but as soon as we do, we'll make sure that you have it as well.
ACOG has put us on notice that they will not have it available until at least the December 17th, which I believe is the due date, right?
It is.
Yeah. So ACOG will not have your information available till December 17th, and then financials will not be available until after the first year.
Okay, so what is that? Does that place us in jeopardy then?
There won't be any action. There can't be any action by the Noah Management Authority until January 27th.
Third.
January 23rd, sorry, January 23rd. And so, yeah, it'll be a tight window to get everything in and done. It certainly puts our office, back a little bit, but, we'll work the best we can to meet those deadlines.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same question since I would be under the same compote, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we're, like I said, the deadline's a deadline, but we can't, but our office cannot take action. The Noah Management Authority has to take action. And that can't happen until January 23rd at our next meeting, or the meeting following the deadline. But again, it's not a free-for-all. It puts our office behind. We have to vet this stuff out, ask questions back to people, try to get as apples to apples as we can. So December 17th is still the deadline to help us out. All right.
And one more time, but in the same token, you do not want us to try to submit this without the form being completed. Is that correct?
You won't be able to, because there's mandatory field requirements. You can go ahead and start working on it and getting all of your information ready that you have. And then once you get that information from your trust or your
Governing body.
your shared governing body, whatever we want to call the COGS. But yeah, you can go ahead and get your information and get ahead of it and get all your information in except for what they're going to provide you. But you won't be able to push submit because most of the stuff in it's mandatory. All right.
Moving on into NG911 systems and NG911 readiness. These are not necessarily new. There's a drop-down portion that is new depending on what you choose, but this is not a new section or question.
So I want to skip down to the select the level of maturity that best fits your PSAP progress. This is somewhat confusing to most folks that fill this out. And this goes off of the TFOPA, which is a kind of a NG911 readiness documentation that's out there. And we have to use this to answer questions to the FCC. So, and a lot of this data we're asking because the FCC requires it from the state of Oklahoma to fill out. So most of the PSAPs in Oklahoma are going to be foundational. And that some transition to NG911 call routing and location has begun, but the call routing and location information for all calls within the jurisdiction have not been fully implemented. This includes the initial database and GIS work to support NG911. So most of us are in that area, in that arena, with the exception, to my knowledge, of 3 different distinct areas. One being Ottawa, who is joined an NG911 environment, and the other being Payne County, who also, I believe, has joined an NG911 environment or NG911 system, and then the ACOG region. A lot of people put in jurisdictional in-state, and and I've been on a lot of conversations with folks at the federal level, and to my knowledge, there's not anyone that is currently jurisdictional in-state in the country. So again, I believe most of us are foundational. However, there could be some transitional and obviously intermediate in those 3 areas specifically that I talked about.
Are there any questions about that matrix or those parts? Moving on. This portion is not necessarily new, but there are new parts. Starting with, does your PSAP operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a drop-down, yes or no. The new question is, does your PSAP provide primary 911 call answering services and or dispatch services to areas or response agencies outside of your normal jurisdictional boundary? Like services outside the city limits, county provides services to municipality, dispatch services for standalone EMS services or volunteer fire. That is new. It's a yes or no question, but if it is a yes question, we're asking that ILAs be uploaded. And I'll let Lance talk a little bit more about that, but does anybody have any question about what that question is asking?
Yeah, would you explain that one more time?
Okay, let me give you a scenario. So we have El Reno 1. El Reno's PSAP is governed by the city of El Reno. You have, however, you answer 911 calls and you provide dispatch services to the county. So therefore, your answer would be yes. And then we need to know, does your PSAP have interlocal agreement to provide that? You know, is there some type of agreement in place? And if so, the answer would be yes. And then we would need you to upload that right below. So it's a lot of work, and we understand that. However, there's been issues within the state of Oklahoma within the last 12 months where this was a major issue for locals. There's unwritten rules, there's handshake agreements, we think there's agreements in play, or like the locals may think there's an agreement in place, but there's not. And then when there's some type of argument over funding or something along those lines, then all of a sudden, you know, it certainly causes disruption across the entire local area there. So, and there's another, you know, the state 911 Management Authority is responsible to have a centralized repository of these type of agreements. And that's in Title 63, 20, and 64. So we haven't done that before. We keep some, you know, some that are that we've worked with before. You know, we'll keep track, or we'll store those, or we'll save them. But that's what we're asking for. Does that help explain it? So primary service outside of your governing body's area is what we're looking for.
What if they
Okay,
have those, but they don't have an agreement written down, or it's a handshake agreement?
That's fine. If you don't have an agreement, just click no, and I would probably go back and ask questions.
Okay, so when you say you don't have an agreement, you don't have a written, we've had a mutual aid agreement with Yukon for 16 years, since they're the other PSAP closest to us, but
Sure.
we have nothing in writing to date.
Yeah.
So you're saying there has to be a written.
This is more, instead of mutual aid, this is more for primary service. You know, does your PSAP provide primary 911 call answering service and or dispatch services to those areas? So we're talking about primary dispatch services to outside of your normal governing body's jurisdictional boundary.
Okay.
So if you know, if the county provides dispatch services to a municipality, you know, and there's an agreement there, then, you know, that's what we're looking for. And vice versa. Any other questions on that one? All right, moving along.
Lance, this is Porter at Storer. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
All right. So you're familiar with our unique situation here, 5 PSAPs in Payne County, and some of the responsibilities that we just discussed are split. For instance, Payne County Sheriff's Office, you know, they're a PSAP for all incorporated areas outside the city limits and several small communities in Payne County. they dispatch law enforcement for those. However, if it's fire, that call is transferred to Stillwater for Glencoe, Ripley, Ingalls, Perkins Fire District. So it's split. So we're going to be, as usual, we're going to be doubling up with Payne County on this information. So Payne County SO is potentially going to have some interlocal agreements and dispatch law enforcement, but calls are transferred to us for fire dispatch. So how should we articulate that?
Yeah, so, look within yourself first. And the scenario you're talking about is exactly the scenario that cost 2 county commissioners their jobs this year and has seriously disrupted another county. And that has to do with fire dispatch. So if you're providing dispatch services to fire departments outside of your jurisdictional boundary, then the answer is yes. And do you have an interlocal agreement? Yes or no, and then upload the agreement. So now for them, do they provide dispatch services to local police departments? If the answer is yes, we provide it to the local police departments. And then, do you have an interlocal agreement? Yes or no. It's more for, this is more for, I'd say 90% of this is for you, not necessarily for us, as it relates to providing services outside of your jurisdictional boundary. And making sure that you have, those agreements in place to make sure that they're, that you're doing things according to that agreement.
Understood. Got it.
Okay.
I have a question about that as well.
Okay.
So you keep saying dispatching, but what about call taking? Because for instance, we're the primary, oh, this is Jessica Carter, by the way, but we're the primary PSAP for all of Comanche County. However, Comanche Nation, BIA, OHP are within our jurisdiction, but they don't take those calls. We process those calls and then let them know they need to send to that specific location. So would the answer be yes or no?
On that, you're the primary PSAP for the entire county. Now,
Yeah.
Is there any agreements between Comanche County, like a trust agreement, probably not a trust, but some agreement between the county and you that says that you take those 911 calls? And I don't know. I mean, you guys been doing that for decades now, so I'm not sure if there is.
Yeah, it's in our consolidated agreement, but the problem is that like the tribal entities, and then like I said, OHP, Troop G here, like we take all those calls for them.
Sure.
And then
Yeah,
we coordinate with getting response. Of course, we don't typically transfer the calls. We'll typically just continue to call process, but someone else in the room will let them know they've got a call on I-44 and that they need to send a trooper, or, hey, this is on tribal property because we've identified it as tribal property and we need tribal police. Then we ask them to send a tribal police officer out. So I answered yes on it. I'd actually already emailed Stacy, but after talking, you keep saying dispatching services, and we don't necessarily dispatch them, but we're definitely call taking for all these entities, and I did list them on our form.
Yeah, I say for your situation, you don't have any legal. The OHP is a standalone ECC within the area. It's a dispatch center within Comanche County. It's given that OHP is going to provide service across the entire state of Oklahoma. To have, and we're not looking for agreements with OHP to provide 911 call taking, right? Because you're the primary PSAP. As it relates to the tribes, if you had an agreement to actually answer or to provide dispatch services, then yeah, we need that agreement. As it relates to 911 call taking, within Oklahoma, because the way we have our civilized tribes, they're a citizen of Oklahoma. So you're providing those 911 call taking citizens within your county. So, it's a case-by-case basis. I think, for the tribe, for your area, just for 911 call taking, you don't need that. If you're providing dispatch services to their police officers, you would need something, in my opinion. I mean, but that's between you and your legal counsel. But what we're trying to capture is, do you have that? Are you providing those dispatch services or not? I hope that makes sense, but if you're the primary PSAP for a municipality and that's all you do, there's tribal people that live all within that. And because of McGirt, you're still the primary PSAP for that citizen. And there's no agreement needed to provide 911 call taking for that citizen. Because we don't break it out like that, right? They don't have a different boundary. If that makes sense. Jessica, did it help?
Yes, that did. Thank you, Lance. I'll go ahead and change that back to no, but thank you.
All right, very good. Next one is equipment. Is that right?
Yep, the next one is under the equipment section. Please list any of standalone ECCs or secondary PSAPs within your PSAP boundary, like a sheriff's dispatch, 8 to 5 dispatch center, etc.
So this is not OHB. This was actually talked about before in an authority meeting. We know OHB's everywhere. We get that. What we're trying to track or trying to figure out, every year I find new people or new counties that have these standalone dispatch centers that are out there. We're trying to figure out where are all these standalone ECCs or secondary PSAPs within your jurisdictional boundary. And so we just want we want those listed out so we can track and know how do we get 911 calls to them, and is that something we need to be looking at? Is that something we need to be helping out with that? But I get the secondary PSAP question all the time, and I don't know that I'm capturing all of those secondary PSAPs in the state. It seems like I'm always forgetting one of them or something. So like Grand River Dam Authority, they're a secondary PSAP, but who would have thought that Grand River Dam Authority had PSAP equipment? So is there any other ones out there like that? Standalone ECC is the same way. I was out in eastern Oklahoma and found out there's like 3 standalone dispatch centers in these small municipalities I had no idea even existed. So everything other than OHP, if there's a standalone dispatch center that you transfer 911 calls to within your boundary, then list those out there so we can figure out how what all's out there.
Do we need to list the ones that go the opposite way? So like military base that transfers 911 call in?
Yeah, if there's a military base that has a standalone ECC, or, if they're answering 911 calls, I guess, then I would like to be able to capture that.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I don't know if the Air National Guard has their own dispatch center up there or not in Tulsa.
They did up until they just turned it off and shut it down by the federal order.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, just trying to figure out where, what all is the total impact. All right.
The next question has gotten a little wonky since I made it bigger, but it's, does your PSAP or agency have a comprehensive policy and or procedure manual specific to the 911 center? Do you want to touch on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple, yeah, you do or you don't. Again, we're trying to capture who out there may need some assistance with this. Should we bring in additional training classes to write SOPs? Things like that, so.
So the next one is a new question. We're asking if your COOP plan includes cyber. We've been talking about COOP planning a lot in the last probably 6 to 8 months. So we added this question this year. Michael has been working on projects with cyber, and we do have a newly hired cybersecurity person. Her name is Amy, and she's going to be working with him. So we're asking this question. He's doing a project with the data that's coming from this. So this is an important question. It's just yes or no, drop down, easy question. Do you have it or do you not in your COOP plan?
Yeah, so the next question's mine.
Yep.
So the next question is 911 equipment used by the PSAP. And it's right there at the bottom, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Who is the PSAP's 911 equipment vendor supplier? So it's right below her cursor right now. What we're looking for there is like Motorola or AT&T or, who is the mothership of the 911 software vendor supplier that you're using, specifically to software. So we're looking for that because the issue we've had in the past is people will put Motorola, but they won't tell us, which Motorola software product are you actually using. And it's pretty important to us now to break those two out. And we got to make sure we know exactly what software platform you're using. So right below that is what brand of PSAP 911 equipment do you have? So what brand is it? Is it CallWorks, Intrado, Vesta, Zetron? Now they could be the same. Zetron could be Zetron, maybe. So anyway, that's what we're asking for. The next questions are if you don't provide us detailed information that aligns with other people, then we're going to be calling and asking additional questions. So please do your due diligence on this. We have to have a comprehensive list to be added to our RFP, our request for proposal for NG911 core services. And we need that by the end of January because it's going to be, we have to have it listed out in an appendix to our RFP so the core providers know what equipment we're currently using out in Oklahoma. So the next few questions there, is your 911 equipment NENA I3 compliant? Yes or no? What version is your PSAP's 911 software? So we're looking for a version number. So please get with your vendor to find out if you don't know what that software number is. What mapping software does the PSAP use? Again, I think that's a duplicated question from before, but that's a drop-down menu and has an other. What brand is the PSAP's recording software? Very important. What version of PSAP's recording software? Very important. And is the PSAP's recorder NG911 NENA I3 compliant? Very important. These are all things that are potentially going to be impacted by NG911 core services in the next 12 to 18 months. So we have to make sure that this is as accurate as possible with what you're using today.
Okay.
Any questions?
And it does ask if you have a COOP plan. If you don't know, there is a grant for the COOP plan. It is an 80-20 match. And Karen would love to talk to you about that if you have questions, how we can help you finish off a COOP plan or get the necessary equipment to complete your COOP plan.
Lance,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Are most of these questions here about the equipment, vendors and such as that, that's going to be through ACOG, isn't it?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. That's all
And
I need.
yeah, and I think you kind of came in late. They're working on their data now.
Yeah, well, I was at a meeting over there a while ago. I just got here late.
Okay, sounds good.
Do you want to talk about the different?
Yeah, so there's another question at the bottom of the screen, right where her cursor's at. It says, and this goes back to El Reno's question. Does a PSAP have a written MOU in place with a neighboring agency to answer 911 calls during a localized outage? That's that mutual aid agreement we were talking about. Some people are actually getting more detailed than just a typical, hey, here's a generalized mutual aid agreement. We've seen some things between Beaver County and Texas counties is one specific where they actually have more of a policy specific to 911 and not just generalized mutual aid agreement. So everybody understands who's doing what and where they're going and things like that. So, but if you have that agreement between your neighbor to help back you up, then that's where we want you to upload that.
Call data is exactly the same as previous years. If you're having trouble getting a call report, you can contact our office and I'll be happy to help you. Everybody's favorite, the financial information. There's with only a few exceptions, the expenses are exactly the same. Every year we kind of go through this as far as the technical personnel, and it usually ends up with $0 being an expense, but even if there is no dedicated technical person that is just for the PSAP that has a salary just to work in the PSAP, there's still a cost somewhere to have someone come in and repair computers or items or things like that on a local level. So if you do have somebody that's coming in, say from the city or the county, and they're coming in, say they spend 50 hours a year in the PSAP and they make $100,000 a year, you're going to put that salary over the time that they spend, and that is going to be the cost. Whether that's a cost that the PSAP pays or the city pays or the county pays, that's not the important thing. We're looking to see how much that person is working in the PSAP and the cost that's incurring.
So here's the big, go ahead.
I have a question. My city office is saying that we need to add in all the benefits as part of the salary for the total of it. Is that what you want?
That is correct. Yep, total cost.
Okay.
I think the big thing on this is, we want to capture all of the expenses related to the 911 center. This directly impacts any current and future fee structures that we have for 911 fees. And obviously we don't want to inflate. We don't want to, we want actuals. We want, how did you come up with this number is your decision on how you do that. But we're just really trying to push to ensure that everyone understands that if you're doing work within the 911 center, it costs money. Right now, the 911 fee on average across the state of Oklahoma covers about 52% with House Bill 1590. I believe that's inaccurate because I don't believe that we're capturing all the true costs to provide 911 in the state of Oklahoma. Prior to House Bill 1590, it hovered right around 33%, 33 to 34%, depending on the year. We just want to capture all of the costs. So help us help you at the end of the day. I mean, that's really what this boils down to. If I want to make sure that when we're reporting out to the legislature, we're reporting as accurate as possible what that percentage is covering as it relates to the fee structure. There will come a time when someone will say that fee's too high. We are one of the higher ones in the country, to be honest with you. There are some that are a lot higher than us. I agree with that. But any of these expenses, we want to make sure that we are certainly covering everything that costs you to do business within that 911 center. And that kind of sums it up for everything in here. What are those additional items? Now, they may not be 911 fundable like OLEDs, so you can't use 911 fees for it, for OLEDs or for GeoSafe or for some mobile platform or something out there. But we still need to capture that's a cost. Radio consoles, that's on here. Well, what's your radio consoles? Well, I don't know. My radio maintenance budget is $2.8 million a year. Well, what portion of that is the radio consoles? Well, I don't know. They don't break that out. Well, let's talk to the vendor about breaking that out and making sure that you know what those costs are. So that's kind of, overarching. All this does is help you, and it helps us ensure that we are reporting back out the true cost to provide 911 service in the state of Oklahoma. So with that said, this first one, if you can get a percentage of what that IT person costs, if it's based on hours or it's based on total employees of the city or the county versus total employees within the state. I mean, there's probably some type of formula you can work with your finance people to come up with. If not, and it's zero, okay, it's zero. We're not going to ding you on it and say, okay, well, how come you're putting zero on here? This data just is to help you. So the next thing I wanted to cover is what is the total cost for telephone telecommunications? So this is your trunk line cost. There's a lengthy note below most of these because every year there's more and more questions and there's more and more misunderstanding. What we're trying to do is come up with what is the real cost of actually providing the 911 equipment and connectivity and all that within the dispatch center. This can include the cost of your telephone system and your telephone circuits, telephone lines for your 10-digit, because that is a telecommunication cost. I mean, we're still going to be transferring, we do today, transfer calls to your 10-digit line. That's a backup emergency number. So, so that information is put within this same telephone telecommunications. The one right below that is your call taking equipment, maintenance and warranty. So this is specific to that call taking equipment, not the connectivity, not the trunk lines, not the database costs and things like that. It's the actual equipment and maintenance and warranty. Now, if you're an AT&T, current AT&T customer, you're going to get a bill typically that is not broken out. You need to call AT&T and make sure that they break out what is your least hosted cost versus the trunk line costs and things like that. And hopefully most of you have done that because this is not uncommon for what we've seen over the years. However, even last year, we saw one of these with zero and one of them with the entire AT&T bill listed in the other block. Well, that's not doing us much good when we're trying to plan for NG911 and what the potential savings is for you to save those costs on those trunk lines. So there you go. Next one, what's the total cost for 911? Oh, we did that one. What's the total cost for GIS services? So there's a cost to that. I believe INCOG pays a separate contract to the INCOG customers or INCOG folks pay some money or something to INCOG to provide that service. In the ACOG region and in the INCOG region both, there's costs locally and there's costs that the COGs provide you. In SWOTA may be the same way. And there may be costs related to hiring a contractor, but yet I still do work internally also. So it's very, very common that you'll see there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 different sources of expenses that add up to a total cost for the 911 center in the GIS column. So as we mentioned earlier, when it also brought up the question about, well, INCOG provides all this to us. That's true. They provide the 911 piece of it too, but there's other folks within INCOG that have their own GIS teams that actually do the work, then they send it to INCOG to be able to put into the kind of centralized repository of GIS data. All right, next, what's total cost for computer data dispatch, maintenance and support? This can include Otis of, for your call tracking piece of it. So what's the cost, not of Otis, and it's not the cost for your CAD and your records and your quote unquote CAD in the field, end quote, your mobile clients. This is the actual cost of computer dispatch within the dispatch center. Next is what's the total cost for radio maintenance consoles? I talked about this a little bit earlier. Break that out within your maintenance and support of those radio consoles and what's the actual cost.
Okay, moving on to revenue. Does anybody have any questions about the expenses first? So a little different on the revenue this year because of House Bill 1590. We needed to split that cost up so we could see what was brought in before and what is brought in after. So your landline, it's asking you from July, which is the beginning of the fiscal year, to November, which the bill went into effect November 1st, but there wasn't revenue change received or seen since after the first, probably end of November, 1st of December. So you should be able to get some accounting of your landline, and it would have come in just like it had been before the bill, checks here, checks there, and there would be an accounting of that, and that's where you're going to find that.
So we had a phone call yesterday. There is some landline money that trickled in over a 30 to 90 day period in December and January is what we've been seeing. And that landline revenue trickled in as either back payment back into the previous calendar year, or it was landline fee revenue, received in locally that landline company didn't know the law changed. That landline revenue that's collected after December 1st would be added to what the Oklahoma Tax Commission receipts sent to you. So that we didn't capture that within the questions here, but total revenue received in Oklahoma Tax Commission from December 1st to June 30th does need to include any landline revenue that may have came in that first 30 to 90 days.
Does anybody have any questions about that revenue? Why it's split or how it's split or where to get wireless accounting? The remainder of the revenue is just the same, except, well, not except, but under other, this is something that people mostly miss, is if you receive grant funding during this fiscal year, you can put that grant funding under other. If you received anything like map book sales or donations, that can all be placed in other. And if you have any questions about, is this something I can place there, you can give me a call. Does anybody have any questions about the budget that needs to be uploaded or the revenue portions?
On the budget that gets uploaded, does that, can that just be the printout from all year, or do you need it broken down into an Excel form?
No, it doesn't have to be Excel. It could just be like the PDF of the budget. That's fine.
Okay.
Any other questions? Like I said, if you have questions later, you can always email me or give me a call. I'll try to get this up on YouTube either today or tomorrow. But we're thankful that you guys came and joined us and spent an hour with us. And if questions arise, you know where to get a hold of us.
Just real quick, there was also another question online that said, and Randy, I believe this goes back to what software, what 911 software you're using. The question was, we're currently using CallWorks for call handling, Zetron for fire department dispatch and paging, and Motorola. Do I need to list all three? I believe that goes back to the question of what 911 equipment are you using, and that question is specific to the 911 equipment, that the actual 911 software itself, not the other softwares. I don't believe there's anywhere outside of maintenance costs and the financial section that we actually call out the CAD system, what CAD are you using, but if it's not specifically listed there, then we don't need the information. So, and she said, okay, thank you. So there we go.
Does somebody have their hand up? Missed the notification.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks for the help.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Stacy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.